Welcome back to the English Decoded podcast, where we explore real everyday English through slow and meaningful conversations. Today, we are talking about a topic that connects everyone, but can also feel deeply emotional, and that is family. Family can feel warm, funny, complicated, and serious all at the same time. This episode is designed to be your cozy and comfortable space for practicing English listening and speaking. We will share a real conversation, look at some beautiful words, and practice sharing our thoughts naturally. So, sit back, relax, and let us dive into today's conversation about the people who know us best. How are you doing today, my friend? I am doing quite well, thank you for asking. I am feeling a little thoughtful today, but overall, it is a peaceful day. How about you? To be honest, I am feeling a little bit guilty today. Oh, really? What happened to make you feel that way? Well, my sister sent me a voice message early this morning. She laughed and said, "Wow, I am surprised you still remember you have a family." Ouch, that sounds like a joke, but with a little bit of real pain hidden inside it. Yes, that is exactly what it felt like. I laughed at first, but then I sat quietly and thought about it for a long time. I realized that she actually has a very good point. Does that mean you have not called your family in a while? Not in a proper way, no. I send quick text messages almost every day, but making a real phone call is completely different. Life gets incredibly busy with work and daily routines, and then suddenly you look up and realize so many days have passed without a real conversation. That happens to almost everyone at some point. We love our families deeply, but time moves so fast, and the days just slip away. Sometimes we do not show our love in the way we actually want to. Exactly, I think about my family all the time, but I do not always take the time to reach out and connect. It really was hard to hear because she was not asking for anything grand or complicated. She just needed to feel that she was still present in my mind and in my life. So, I told her, "I did not forget you at all, and I am so deeply sorry that I took so long to call." Those words sound very simple, but it takes a lot of honesty and courage to say them. They do, and sometimes, that is all our family truly needs from us. They do not need a long, complicated explanation about our busy schedules. They just want to feel remembered and valued. It makes me think about the way my mother communicates with me. Whenever she calls me, the very first thing she asks is, "Have you eaten your food yet?" That is definitely the most universal and famous family question ever. She is not actually asking about the food itself. What she is really saying is, "I am thinking about you right now, and I want to make sure you are doing well." Or when she says, "Call me as soon as you arrive," it actually means, "I will be constantly worrying about your safety until I hear your voice." It is amazing how deep family love can hide inside such ordinary, everyday words. It truly is, and once you start listening to their words in that specific way, it completely changes how you receive their love and care. Tell me, do you consider yourself close to your family? I am close to them, yes, but my entire relationship with them has changed significantly as I have grown older. When I was a young child, my family was absolutely everything to me. They were the entire world that I knew. They raised me, they protected me, and they corrected me whenever I made mistakes. All of those experiences became a permanent part of who I am today. My upbringing shaped me in so many ways that I am still discovering as an adult. I really feel that my upbringing gave me a very strong sense of respect for older people, a respect for guests who visit our home, and even a deep respect for small things like not wasting food. Those valuable lessons became a part of my personality so quietly that I did not even notice them until I was fully grown up. And then, as time goes on, you grow up and start making your own independent choices and creating your own unique path in life. And sometimes, your family does not fully understand or agree with those personal choices. That is very true, but it is not because they do not love you anymore. No, it is usually because they are viewing life from a completely different place, a different time period, and a different set of life experiences. That is exactly what people call the generational gap. My parents grew up firmly believing that safety and stability were the most important things in life. They wanted me to have a stable job, a very clear plan, and to take absolutely no unnecessary risks. That perspective comes from their real-life experiences. They lived through difficult times that taught them to hold on tightly to safety. And their constant worry about you comes from that exact place of love and protection. I understand that completely, but knowing the reason behind it does not always make the situation feel any lighter. Sometimes, intense care and heavy pressure can look and feel exactly the same. Yes, and I think so many people carry that specific feeling very quietly inside themselves. You love your family with all your heart, and you are incredibly grateful for everything they have sacrificed for you. And yet, certain things can still feel very heavy on your shoulders. The heavy obligations can feel overwhelming too. The pressure of calling regularly, visiting constantly, always being available, and constantly explaining your personal life choices to people who love you but do not always understand your world. And when you cannot meet those high expectations and obligations, because your life is too full or you are simply too exhausted, the guilt starts to creep in, even when you are genuinely trying your absolute best every single day. Exactly, a relationship can feel like a beautiful gift and a heavy weight at the exact same time. I think a lot of people who are listening today really need to hear that validation. It is completely okay to feel both ways about your family. You can love your family deeply and still need your own personal space to breathe and grow. Those two feelings are not in conflict with each other at all. To be honest, I really needed to hear those reassuring words today. I think I did too. Can I ask you a question that is a little bit more personal? Of course you can, please go ahead. Have you ever experienced a serious falling out with someone in your family? I do not mean just a small, silly disagreement, but a major conflict that left a long, painful silence between you. Yes, I have. My brother and I once went almost 4 months without speaking to each other properly. We had a very intense argument about something. To be honest, I cannot even remember exactly what started the argument anymore, but both of us went completely silent after that day. And the longer that heavy silence lasted, the more difficult and awkward it became to break it. Silence has a strange kind of weight and power. It does. It always starts as a simple pause to cool down, but slowly, over time, it turns into a massive, solid wall between two people. That is exactly what happened to us. And during that time, I kept thinking to myself that he should be the one to call me first because he was wrong. And I am absolutely sure that he was sitting at his home thinking the exact same thing about me. So, who finally made the move and called? I did, eventually. I just decided one day that I did not want that silent wall between us to get any taller or stronger. I called him up and told him directly that I did not want to leave things like this between us anymore. I did not try to bring up the past or argue about who was right or wrong. I just told him that I missed him. That is often the hardest part of any conflict, letting go of the need to win the argument first. And that is what making amends truly means in a relationship. It does not mean that you were entirely wrong and they were entirely right. It simply means that the relationship matters significantly more to you than winning a temporary argument. Did that phone call fix everything between you two? Not immediately, no. We did not suddenly become perfect friends after that one phone call, but something inside our relationship shifted. The giant wall between us became much smaller, and that small change was enough for us to start rebuilding. I actually had a very similar experience with my own brother last year. We had a disagreement about something small, but somehow, the emotions got too high and it became much bigger than it ever should have been. And then, we both chose to go completely silent. After a few days had passed, the idea of calling him felt really strange and awkward, like too much time had already gone by. But you still chose to make the call anyway. Yes, I did. I called him and simply said that I did not like how we had ended our last conversation. That was all I said. And he listened and replied, "Me neither." And that simple exchange was the beginning of our healing. Sometimes, those are the absolute bravest conversations we can ever have, the short and simple ones. They are brave because you are entering the conversation without knowing how the other person will respond to you. Yes, you just have to decide that the relationship matters more than your fear of rejection, and so you make the call. Family is a very strange and unique thing. We do not get to choose where we come from or who our relatives are, but many of us consciously choose to love them again and again, even through the most difficult and painful parts of life. That is a truly beautiful way to express it. Our family members are our old stories. They are the unique people who remember exactly who we were before we became who we are today. There is a deep, profound sense of belonging in that reality. It is the comforting feeling that you have a permanent place in this world, and that place has always belonged to you. And that specific feeling of belonging is incredibly rare. It is very hard to find that level of comfort anywhere else in the world. But then, on the other hand, there are also the constant questions about your life decisions, the societal pressure, the generational gap in how we view the modern world, and the family obligations that seem to pile up. And of course, the heavy guilt we experience when we fail to meet those expectations. Family is many different things all at once, and our English vocabulary should fully reflect that complexity. We should not just limit ourselves to saying basic sentences like, I have one brother, or I live with my parents. Instead, we can use richer language and say things like, my upbringing shaped the person I am today, or my family gives me a real sense of belonging when life gets tough. We can also say, there is a distinct generational gap between my parents and me regarding career choices. Or we can express that family obligations can sometimes feel heavy, even when we know they come from a place of pure love. And after a difficult argument, I always try to make amends rather than holding on to a painful silence. Now, that is the exact kind of advanced and expressive English that helps us sound more human, natural, and mature. I agree with you completely. Let us take those beautiful words and explore them deeper so our listeners can fully understand how to use them. Let us begin with our first word, which is upbringing. Upbringing refers to the specific way you were raised and nurtured as a child by your parents or guardians. Earlier, we discussed how our family teaches us, protects us, and corrects our behavior when we are young. We mentioned that your upbringing can teach you the value of respect. For example, you could say, my upbringing taught me to always respect older people and listen to their wisdom. Or perhaps your family focused heavily on teaching you to work hard, speak politely to everyone, or always help those who are less fortunate. In that case, you can say, my upbringing shaped the person I am today. And if your family encouraged you to make your own independent choices from a young age, you can say, my upbringing made me a much more independent person. That is an excellent explanation. Our next important word is belonging. Belonging is the deep emotional feeling of being accepted, loved, and welcomed somewhere just as you are. It means you feel that you have a safe and permanent place in the world. Earlier, we talked about the comfort of going back home and not having to explain your whole life from the very beginning to anyone. Yes, exactly. When people already know your old childhood stories, your absolute favorite foods, and your small daily habits, that familiarity gives you a deep sense of belonging. You could easily say, my family gives me a profound sense of belonging whenever I feel lost. Or perhaps you currently live very far away from your hometown, and you deeply miss that familiar comfort. Then you could say, I truly miss the warm feeling of belonging I always have when I am with my family. And if you are discussing close human relationships in general, you can say, a sense of belonging is truly one of the most beautiful and essential parts of a family. That is such a warm and comforting sentence. Our next phrase is generational gap. A generational gap is the natural difference in opinions, beliefs, and worldviews between older people and younger people. Earlier, we mentioned how parents often worry intensely about safe jobs, stable choices, and secure life plans. Yes, that common situation happens primarily because of a generational gap. You could say, sometimes my parents and I see life completely differently because of the generational gap between us. Or perhaps your family has very traditional ideas about career paths, marriage, money management, or lifestyle choices that differ from yours. Then you could say, the generational gap can occasionally create small misunderstandings within my family. And if you want to sound calm, mature, and understanding, you can say, I always try to understand the generational gap instead of jumping into an argument immediately. That is an incredibly useful and practical sentence for daily life. Our next word is obligation. An obligation is something that you feel you must do because of a sense of duty, responsibility, or social expectation. You love your family deeply, but you might also feel a strong pressure that you must call them every day, visit them every weekend, help them with every task, or answer every single message immediately. In that context, you could say, family obligations can sometimes feel quite heavy and overwhelming. Or maybe you are incredibly busy with your career, but you still want to be supportive of your family. Then you could say, I have many family obligations, but I also need to preserve some personal time for myself. And if you want to be completely honest about your feelings, you can say, I love my family with all my heart, but certain obligations make me feel incredibly tired. That sentence feels very real and relatable to many people. Our final phrase for today is make amends. To make amends means to actively fix a relationship, repair a bond, or apologize after a problem, an argument, or a hurt feeling has occurred. Earlier, we talked about the importance of calling a family member after a difficult argument. Yes, you did not want a small, silly argument to turn into a giant wall of silence between you two. So, you could say, I chose to call my brother because I wanted to make amends. Or perhaps you lost your temper and said something too quickly to someone you care about. Then you could say, I really want to make amends with them after our intense argument yesterday. And if you want to express a mature perspective on life, you can say, in a family, it is always much more important to make amends than to win every single argument. That is beautiful. So, today we have explored 5 incredible concepts: upbringing, belonging, generational gap, obligation, and make amends. These are 5 powerful words that can help all of us talk about our families with much more depth, feeling, and accuracy. And as we know, this is the exact moment where many language learners understand the words perfectly while listening, but later, when they actually need to speak in real life, the words suddenly disappear from their minds. Yes, that is exactly why consistent practice after listening to an episode matters so much for fluency. If you encounter these words again in your daily reading, try to use them in small quizzes, play with them in word games, or repeat them out loud during shadowing practice. That is how they transform from words you merely understand into words that are part of your active, real English vocabulary. Just a little bit of extra practice can make these words significantly easier to remember, easier to pronounce, and easier to use spontaneously in real conversations. When you think about your own family, what is the very first feeling that comes to your mind? Is it warmth? Is it a bit of stress? Or is it a mix of both? I think a lot of us carry that exact same feeling quietly. We care deeply, but life moves so incredibly fast, and then suddenly you realize weeks have passed without a proper chat. It is important not to be too hard on yourself when that happens. But yes, when someone you love says they thought you forgot them, that stays in your heart for a long time. It makes you realize that even a 2-minute call means much more than you think. Perhaps you should take a moment to make that call today. It does not have to be a perfect or long conversation. Even a short message is a way of saying, "I remember you and you matter to me." Do you think your unique upbringing changed how you view the concept of family as an adult? In many families, respect and care are viewed as the exact same thing. Care often shows up in the form of respect, and sometimes, that is how people express deep love without ever actually using the word love itself. It is fascinating to notice how people interact. Sometimes, we learn just by watching how family members speak to each other, how they offer help, and how they say sorry, or even how they choose not to say sorry. Do you ever experience a noticeable generational gap with your parents or relatives? It helps when you realize that their intense worry comes from their past experiences. You do not necessarily have to agree with every single piece of advice they give you, but you can understand exactly where it is coming from. The constant calling, the visiting, and always being available can be a lot to handle sometimes. But needing your own space does not mean you love them any less. It simply means you are a human being who needs to keep a little bit of energy for yourself, too. If you ever have a disagreement, it is often best to wait until the intense emotions have settled down. Speaking too fast can lead to saying the wrong things. Once things are calm, trying something small and honest is usually enough to open the connection back up. Making amends does not require a grand speech or a long explanation. Sometimes, it is just one simple message saying, "I was thinking about you today." That is simple, but it carries a massive amount of love. Whoever you are thinking of right now, I truly hope they hear from you today. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us. Remember, your English skills grow every single time you use them, even if it is just by practicing one small sentence a day. Take care of your English journey, and take care of your heart. This is the English Decoded podcast, and we wish you a beautiful day ahead. Goodbye for now.